I was 34 years old and had settled into a life that was as predictable as the sunrise. My days followed a quiet rhythm as a graphic designer working from my small suburban home, a place I had carefully curated to be a sanctuary from the chaos of the world outside. I enjoyed the solitude, the steady pulse of creativity in my work, and the calm of my weekend routines, long walks, good books, and a small circle of friends who understood that my peace was a priority. Until that rainy Thursday evening, I thought I knew exactly what my life was about. The rain had been relentless all day, drumming against the windows with a steady insistence that made the world outside feel distant and blurred. I was in the middle of revising a client's logo when I heard it, a soft, almost tentative cry from the doorstep. At first, I thought it was a stray animal or perhaps the wind playing tricks, but the sound repeated, unmistakably human and urgent. Heart pounding, I set my laptop aside and hurried toward the front door. When I opened it, the sight that greeted me stopped me cold. Wrapped in a faded blue blanket was a newborn baby, no more than a few days old, crying softly but with a strength that spoke of survival. Beside the infant was a small piece of paper, folded carefully, the edges damp from the rain. I scooped the baby into my arms without hesitation, the warmth of the tiny body a stark contrast to the chill in the air. The note, still unexplored, was a mystery I didn't yet dare to unravel. I stood there on my porch, the rain washing over me, feeling an overwhelming flood of emotions I hadn't anticipated. Shock, fear, responsibility, and an odd, unexpected tenderness. What had drawn this child to my doorstep? Was this some cruel prank or a desperate plea for help? I knew I couldn't leave the baby outside, not in that storm, not alone. So I closed the door gently behind me, cradling a life I had never planned to hold. Inside, the house seemed too quiet, too still for the weight of this new presence. I laid the baby down on the couch, wrapping the blanket tighter around her small frame. My mind raced. Who was she? Where had she come from? And most pressingly, what should I do next? The logical part of me wanted to call the authorities immediately, but something held me back, a silent promise to protect this fragile life until I knew more. I fetched a soft towel and gently dried her damp hair, marveling at the softness of her skin and the tiny fingers that curled instinctively around mine. Her cries subsided as I hummed a lullaby my mother used to sing, a small comfort, but somehow enough to soothe her for a few moments. I glanced at the note again, hesitating before unfolding it. The handwriting was neat but hurried, the ink smudged by rain. Please take care of her. I have no other choice. She is safe with you. No name. No explanation. Just those few words that hinted at a story far larger than the one I could imagine. That night, as the storm raged outside, I sat on the floor next to the couch, watching the baby sleep. Her breathing was steady now, peaceful in a way that felt almost miraculous after the chaos of the evening. I realized then that my life, which had seemed so orderly and contained, had been irrevocably changed in a matter of hours. The next morning brought a fragile kind of normalcy. I called the local authorities, explaining the situation with as much calm as I could muster. They assured me someone would come to take the baby into care, but the wait felt endless. I found myself reluctant to hand her over, though I knew it was the right thing to do. There was a strange connection already forming, a fragile thread of attachment I hadn't expected to feel. During those long hours, I tried to learn everything I could about caring for a newborn, fumbling through feeding instructions and diaper changes with trembling hands. The baby, whom I had yet to name, seemed to sense my uncertainty, responding with quiet coos and small smiles that broke through the fear knotting my chest. My life, once measured in deadlines and design briefs, was now punctuated by the urgent needs of this tiny stranger. I found myself watching her intently, memorizing every little feature, the curve of her ear, the flutter of her lashes, the way her tiny fists clenched around my finger. It was as if a new purpose had quietly planted itself within me. Later that day, my curiosity about the note grew stronger. I examined it again, searching for any clues that might explain why this child had been left at my door. Was it random? Or had someone chosen me specifically? The more I looked, the more I realized this was no ordinary abandonment. There was something deliberate in the way she had been left, a silent message cloaked in desperation. I thought about my own family, distant and fractured, and wondered if I should reach out to them. But something held me back, the fear of involving people who might judge or turn away. This was my secret now, a fragile life entrusted to my care, and I was determined to protect her at all costs. That night, after a restless sleep, I sat by the window, the baby nestled against my chest, and let the reality settle around me. I was no longer just Emma Collins, the graphic designer who lived alone. I was something new. A guardian, a protector, a person suddenly responsible for a life that had appeared out of nowhere and refused to be ignored. The rain had stopped, leaving the world outside washed clean and shimmering under the early morning light. Inside, my home was filled with a quiet hope I hadn't known I was missing. This unexpected arrival had shattered the predictability of my life, but in its place, it had planted the possibility of something extraordinary. I didn't know what the days ahead would bring, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to turn away from this child. Whatever secrets lay hidden in that note, whatever dangers or mysteries awaited, I was ready to face them. Because in that moment, holding her close, I understood that life's most profound journeys often begin with the most unexpected knocks at the door. The days that followed the baby's arrival blurred together in a strange mix of fear, wonder, and exhaustion. I had contacted the authorities as soon as I could, and a social worker named Linda had come by to check on the baby and me. She was kind but professional, asking questions about how I had found the child and what steps I had taken since. I told her everything I knew, which was very little, and she reassured me that the baby would be placed in care while they searched for the mother or any relatives. But even with that assurance, I found myself unable to let go. Every time I looked at the baby, her delicate fingers curling around mine, her soft breath warming my skin, I felt a deepening bond that surprised me. She had no name, no history, and yet she was already a part of my life. I had to fill her days with care and comfort, even as the weight of responsibility pressed down on me like a shadow I couldn't shake. I named her Lily for the time being, after the flower that had been blooming in my garden when I first found her. It was a small act of ownership, a way to give her something tangible in a world that felt suddenly uncertain and complicated. I fed her, changed her diapers, and rocked her to sleep, learning with each passing hour how much she depended on me. The quiet nights were the hardest, when she cried for reasons I couldn't understand and I felt helpless, desperate to soothe her but unsure how. But it wasn't just the physical care that consumed me. The note left with Lily nagged at me relentlessly. "Please take care of her. I have no other choice. She is safe with you." Those words felt like a puzzle I needed to solve, a secret waiting to be uncovered. Who had left her there? Why me? And what dangers had forced someone to make such a heartbreaking decision? Curiosity drove me to dig deeper, even though I knew it might bring more questions than answers. I searched the neighborhood, asking quietly if anyone had seen a woman acting strangely or carrying a baby in the days before Lily appeared. No one knew anything. I visited local clinics and shelters, inquiring if any mothers had recently vanished or sought help. A few people gave me sympathetic looks but no information. Then one afternoon, as I was sifting through old newspapers online, a small article caught my eye. It mentioned a woman named Rachel Harper, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances several years ago. The article was brief, filled with speculation about her sudden absence and the closed investigation that followed. Something about the name felt familiar, a faint echo in the back of my mind I couldn't place. I printed the article and stared at it, wondering if there could be any connection to Lily. Was Rachel the mother? Had she left the baby behind to protect her from something dangerous? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I knew about my own family's history. I had always been an only child, raised by a single mother who rarely spoke of her past. Could there be secrets hidden there, waiting to be uncovered? Balancing my work with the care of Lily became a juggling act fraught with tension. My freelance projects piled up, deadlines loomed, and yet my thoughts were never far from the tiny life sleeping in the next room. I felt torn between the worlds I inhabited, the professional one I had built carefully, and this unexpected new role that demanded every ounce of my attention and compassion. One evening, as I sat at my desk trying to sketch out designs, I heard Lily stir from her crib. I rushed to her side, picking her up and holding her close as she fussed. I whispered softly to her, trying to calm the rising panic I felt whenever she cried. In those moments, I realized how deeply I had fallen into this new reality, how much I had already changed without even realizing it. Linda, the social worker, visited again a week later. She brought papers and explanations about temporary guardianship and the legal process ahead. We talked about what would happen if no family came forward, about the possibility of me becoming Lily's legal guardian. The idea both terrified and thrilled me. I was no expert in childcare or law. I was just a woman who had stumbled into motherhood by chance. But the thought of giving Lily a home, of being the person she could count on, sparked something fierce inside me. Despite the growing attachment, I couldn't ignore the nagging fear that someone might come for Lily. Someone who didn't have her best interests at heart. The note's plea weighed heavily on my mind. Who had left her with me? And what dangers were they trying to protect her from? Each unanswered question tightened the knot of anxiety in my chest. In the quiet moments between feedings and diaper changes, I found myself researching every detail I could about Rachel Harper. I combed through public records, social media, and old news reports, piecing together fragments of a life that had vanished into the shadows. Rachel had been a young woman in her late 20s, known for her work in community outreach and her passionate advocacy for children's rights. Then, without warning, she disappeared, leaving friends and family bewildered. A few forum posts hinted at a family feud, vague mentions of threats and danger, but nothing concrete. It was as if the truth was buried beneath layers of silence and fear. I wondered if Rachel had left Lily behind to save her from that same darkness, to give her a chance at a life free from harm. As days turned into weeks, Lily's presence began to reshape my world. I found myself talking to her as if she could understand, sharing hopes and fears I hadn't voiced aloud in years. I told her about the garden outside, about the books on the shelf, about the quiet street where we lived. I tried to create a world for her that was safe and full of love, even as uncertainty loomed large. Friends noticed the change in me. One evening, my closest friend, Sarah, stopped by unannounced. She found me rocking Lily in the living room, tears streaming down my face as I whispered reassurances to the baby. Sarah didn't judge. She simply sat beside me, offering silent support. It was the first time I admitted aloud how overwhelmed I felt, how unprepared I was for this sudden upheaval. "You're doing everything right," Sarah said softly. "Sometimes love is enough, even when we don't have all the answers." Her words stayed with me, a balm amid the chaos. I realized that while the future was uncertain, and the mystery of Lily's past unresolved, what mattered most was the here and now. I was her protector for however long that might be. The investigation into Lily's origins continued in the background, a slow-moving process filled with dead ends and small discoveries. I cooperated fully, providing DNA samples and answering questions, hoping for news that might reunite Lily with her family, or at least shed light on the shadows surrounding her arrival. Yet every day without answers made the bond between us stronger and the stakes higher. In the quiet hours of early morning, as Lily slept peacefully beside me, I often wondered what kind of life awaited her, what secrets lay buried in the past, and whether I was brave enough to face whatever truths emerged. The note's words echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the unknown story that had brought this child into my life. But despite the fear and uncertainty, a quiet determination settled within me. I had chosen to care for Lily, even before I fully understood what that meant. Now there was no turning back. I would protect her, search for the truth, and navigate the tangled path ahead, one small step at a time. It was a chilly afternoon when the pieces of the puzzle finally began to fall into place. For weeks I had been chasing shadows, sifting through fragments of information about Rachel Harper, the woman whose disappearance seemed to hold the key to Lily's story. Each lead had been a dead end or a whisper, until a phone call from a private investigator changed everything. The investigator, a quiet man named Marcus, had been hired by the Social Services Department to assist in tracing Rachel's whereabouts. When he reached out to me, his voice was cautious but resolute. He told me he'd uncovered something significant, a family connection I had never imagined, a secret that had been buried for decades. He asked if I was ready to hear the truth. I wasn't sure I was, but I knew I had to be. I met Marcus at a small cafe downtown, the kind of place that held the comforting smell of coffee and old books. He slid a folder across the table, and as I opened it, I felt a strange mix of dread and hope. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters tying Rachel Harper to my own family, to me. The discovery stunned me into silence. Rachel was my half-sister, a fact my mother had kept hidden all my life. The realization hit me like a thunderclap. The baby I had found on my doorstep was not just a stranger, but family, blood running through her veins that connected directly to mine. Marcus explained that Rachel had been forced to disappear because of a dangerous family feud, something that had fractured our lineage years ago. The feud involved property disputes, bitter rivalries, and threats that escalated beyond what I had ever imagined. Rachel's disappearance was a desperate attempt to protect herself and now her child. I sat there, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. The sister I never knew existed had left her child with me, the only family she could trust. It was a secret kept for decades, buried beneath layers of silence and fear. My entire understanding of who I was had shifted in a single moment, and with it the responsibility I felt for Lily deepened immeasurably. Returning home that evening, I held Lily close, the truth settling around me like a heavy cloak. I thought about Rachel, what she must have endured, the sacrifices she made to keep her daughter safe. I wondered if she had known I would be the one to find her child, if she had hoped for this connection even as she disappeared. The days that followed were filled with conflicted emotions. Part of me wanted to confront the past head-on, to demand answers from my mother and the rest of the family. But another part of me feared what those confrontations might unleash. The old wounds, the grudges, the dangers that had forced Rachel into hiding in the first place. I began reaching out to distant relatives cautiously, probing the edges of a family web tangled with resentment and secrets. Some were reluctant to talk, others outright hostile, but a few offered fragments of insight. They spoke of Rachel as a bright, compassionate woman caught in a storm she couldn't escape, a woman who chose to disappear rather than let the feud destroy her child. In the midst of this turmoil, my bond with Lily grew stronger. I found myself fiercely protective, determined to shield her from the shadows that haunted our family. I wanted her to have a life filled with love and safety, far from the bitterness that had shaped the past. One afternoon, as I sat in the garden with Lily sleeping in my arms, I made a decision. I would fight to give her the future she deserved, no matter how difficult the path. That meant not only caring for her day by day, but also confronting the family history that had brought us together. I arranged a meeting with my mother, a woman I had always thought I knew. When we sat face to face in the quiet living room, the air thick with unspoken truths, I asked her about Rachel. Her eyes filled with tears as she confessed the secret she had kept, the feud that tore our family apart, the fear that silenced her, and the pain of losing a daughter she never stopped thinking about. She told me how Rachel had begged her to keep the secret for Lily's sake, to protect her from the dangerous forces that still lingered. My mother's voice trembled as she described the heartbreak of being cut off from her child, the weight of a silence that had lasted far too long. Hearing her story, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and understanding. The past was tangled and painful, but it was also a part of who we were. I realized that to move forward, I had to embrace the complexities of our family history, the good and the bad, and use it to build a new story for Lily. Legal matters soon became a pressing concern. I consulted with a lawyer to explore the possibility of gaining guardianship of Lily, understanding that Rachel's absence left a void that needed to be filled. The process was daunting, filled with paperwork, evaluations, and the looming uncertainty of what the future held. Throughout it all, Lily remained my anchor. Her presence grounded me, reminding me of the real reason I was fighting so hard. I wanted to give her stability, love, and a chance at a life unmarred by the conflicts that had defined our past. As the weeks passed, I continued to unravel the threads of Rachel's story, discovering letters and photographs that painted a picture of a woman who had lived with quiet courage and fierce love. Each piece brought me closer to understanding the sacrifices she had made, and the hope she had placed in me. One evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, I whispered promises I intended to keep. That she would be safe, that she would be loved, and that I would do everything in my power to protect her from the shadows of our past. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges I hadn't yet imagined. But in embracing the truth of our family, I found strength I didn't know I had. Lily was no longer just a baby left on my doorstep. She was a symbol of resilience, a living bridge between a fractured past and a hopeful future. And I was ready to face whatever came next, for her, for Rachel, and for the family we were just beginning to understand. The moment I signed the guardianship papers, a strange mix of relief and apprehension washed over me. The legal process had been long and exhausting, but now Lily was officially mine to care for, a responsibility I embraced fully despite the challenges ahead. It wasn't just about the paperwork. It was about building a future for her, one grounded in love and security, far from the shadows that had haunted our family for so long. I reached out to a few trusted relatives who had shown kindness during my search for Rachel, asking for their support as I navigated this new chapter. Their cautious acceptance was a balm, a reminder that family could sometimes heal in unexpected ways. Together we began to weave a fragile network of care around Lily, one that gave me hope she wouldn't have to face the world alone. Adjusting to motherhood was a journey filled with small victories and quiet struggles. I learned the rhythms of Lily's needs, the way she responded to the softness of a lullaby, the comfort she found in the gentle sway of my arms. I watched her grow, her bright eyes exploring the world with curiosity and wonder, and felt a fierce protectiveness deepen with each passing day. My home, once a sanctuary of solitude and order, transformed into a lively space filled with the sounds of coos and laughter. I rearranged my schedule, carving out time for bedtime stories and afternoon strolls, finding joy in the mundane moments that now defined my days. Each smile from Lily was a reminder of the new life we were building together. But the past was never far behind. The family feud that had forced Rachel into hiding still cast a long shadow, and I knew I had to tread carefully. I reached out to a counselor recommended by Linda, the social worker, hoping to find guidance for both myself and Lily as we navigated the complexities of our situation. Therapy sessions became a space to untangle the emotions swirling inside me. The grief for a sister I never knew, the fear for Lily's safety, and the hope that we could break free from the cycle of secrecy and pain. I learned to be patient with myself, to accept that healing was not linear, and that the scars of the past would take time to fade. Meanwhile, I began to gather documents and letters Rachel had left behind, piecing together her story to share with Lily when the time was right. I wanted her to know about the woman who had loved her fiercely, who had made unimaginable sacrifices to protect her. It was a story of resilience and courage, one I hoped would inspire strength in both of us. As Lily grew, so did her personality. She showed early signs of creativity, reaching for crayons and scribbling with determination. I encouraged her curiosity, filling our home with books and art supplies, nurturing the spark I saw in her eyes. It was a reminder that despite the hardships, life could be filled with beauty and possibility. School loomed on the horizon and with it new challenges. I worried about how Lily would fit in, whether she would face questions about her past or feel the weight of the secrets she carried. I connected with teachers and counselors, sharing as much as I could to ensure she would be supported in every step of her journey. One afternoon as we walked home from the park, Lily reached up and took my hand. Her small fingers curled around mine, and in that simple gesture, I felt the profound connection that had grown between us. She was no longer just a child I had found on my doorstep. She was my daughter in every sense of the word. Yet, even as we built this new life, moments of doubt crept in. I wrestled with the fear that the past might catch up with us, that the family feud's dangers were not as distant as I hoped. But those fears were tempered by the strength I found in Lily's presence, and the support of those who had chosen to stand by us. Together, we created routines that brought comfort and stability. Saturday mornings became pancake breakfasts, messy and joyful, filled with laughter and the smell of syrup. Bedtime was reserved for stories, where I wove tales of bravery and kindness, planting seeds of hope in her young heart. I watched Lily thrive in school, her determination shining through even when challenges arose. She made friends, her laughter filling our home with a warmth I hadn't known in years. There were hard days, moments when she expressed frustration or sadness, but we faced them together, learning to communicate and heal. Our first real conflict came unexpectedly. One evening after a long day, Lily burst into tears, telling me she felt unwanted by the world, as if she didn't belong. Her words cut deep, stirring fears I had tried to keep at bay. I held her close and reassured her that she was loved beyond measure, that she had a family in me, and that she belonged exactly where she was. That night, I reflected on how far we had come. From a mysterious night when a baby appeared on my doorstep to the vibrant life we now shared. Our journey had been anything but ordinary. The road ahead was still uncertain, but the bond between us was unbreakable. I continued to advocate for Lily, connecting with legal guardianship services to ensure her future was secure. I sought out community resources and support groups, building a network that could catch us if we stumbled. Every step was a testament to the love and commitment I felt. In quiet moments, I allowed myself to imagine what our lives might look like years from now. I pictured Lily growing into a strong, compassionate young woman, proud of her heritage and unafraid to face the world. I dreamed of the day she would understand the sacrifices made for her, and the depth of the love that had brought her safely into my life. Though the past still whispered its presence, I was no longer defined by it. Instead, I chose to focus on the possibilities before us, the new memories waiting to be made, the healing yet to come, and the promise of a future built on trust and hope. Our story was far from over, but as I watched Lily sleep peacefully one evening, I knew we were moving forward together. The wounds of the past might never fully fade, but in their place we were building something enduring. A family forged by courage, compassion, and the unyielding power of love. It's been nearly 3 years since the night I found Lily on my doorstep, wrapped in that faded blue blanket with a note that held more questions than answers. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and the evening sun filters through the curtains, I sit and reflect on how much has changed since then. How a stranger's desperate act reshaped my life in ways I never could have imagined. Those early days were a whirlwind of uncertainty and fear. I was a graphic designer with a life carefully arranged around solitude and routine, suddenly thrust into motherhood without warning or preparation. The weight of responsibility was crushing at times, and the mystery of Lily's past loomed like a shadow I couldn't escape. But through it all, the bond we forged grew stronger, a lifeline in a world that felt unsteady. Discovering that Lily was my half-sister's child was a revelation that shook the foundations of my identity. For years I had lived without knowing the full story of my family, unaware of the secrets and pain that had shaped us. Rachel's disappearance, the hidden family feud, and the sacrifices she made to protect her daughter became threads woven into the fabric of our shared history. Understanding that connection brought with it both grief and a profound sense of belonging. The journey to guardianship was daunting. Legal battles, emotional struggles, and the constant fear of what the future might hold. But when I signed those papers, it felt like a declaration of commitment, a promise to Lily that I would be there for her no matter what. Since then, our lives have been filled with the ordinary and extraordinary moments that make up a family. Watching Lily grow has been one of the greatest joys of my life. From the tentative first smiles to the fierce determination she shows in school and art, she has blossomed into a vibrant, curious child. Our home is alive with laughter, creativity, and the kind of chaos that only children bring. I treasure our Saturday pancake mornings, our bedtime stories filled with wonder, and even the arguments, all signs of a life lived fully and deeply. There have been challenges, of course. Moments when Lily's past felt like a weight too heavy to bear. When questions about her family left her confused or upset. We've navigated those times with patience and love, building a foundation of trust that allows her to feel safe and valued. I've worked closely with teachers, counselors, and friends to create a support system that embraces her uniqueness and strength. Through it all, Lily has shown an incredible resilience, a testament to the courage inherited from her mother. She even chose to honor her family's history by incorporating both her parents' names into her own, a beautiful act of remembrance and identity. It's moments like these that remind me why every struggle, every sleepless night, has been worth it. Looking back, I realize how much Lily has filled the void left by my losses, the absence of a sister I never knew, the quiet loneliness of a life once lived in isolation. She has brought light and laughter into my home, a living reminder that family is not just about blood but about the love and care we choose to give. Now, as I watch her grow into a young woman with dreams and hopes of her own, I feel a deep sense of gratitude. Our story, which began with uncertainty and fear, has blossomed into one of healing and hope. The wounds of the past have not vanished, but they have been softened by the bonds we have built, and the future we continue to create together. I often think about Rachel and the sacrifices she made, the courage it took to leave her child in the care of a stranger who would become family. I hope she knows, wherever she is, that her daughter is safe and loved, that her legacy lives on in the life we share. Our journey has taught me about the transformative power of compassion, the strength found in unexpected connections, and the resilience of the human spirit. Life does not always follow the path we envision, But sometimes the detours lead us to places of profound meaning and joy. As I sit here now, Lily asleep beside me, I feel a quiet contentment. The story that once seemed to be ending was only just beginning, written anew with every day we share. And in that truth I find peace, knowing that love above all else is what truly makes a family whole. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.